been slain. An enemy has been slain. Double kill.
What's going on, everybody? It's Killswitch coming back for another Teacher Tuesday episode. I hope you guys are enjoying the videos. Again, plan on doing every week, every Tuesday if I can. I know last week was a little late. If it's going to be too late, I'll usually just skip the week and let you guys know either through the Discord or whatever. You know, life happens, things come up. But in that case, I'd probably do 2 videos, so just keep your eyes peeled for those. But overall, I'm glad you guys are enjoying the videos. Glad that they're getting out there and being seen. Hopefully they're helping everybody out to some extent. So without further ado, we're gonna hop into this week's hero, and that hero is going to be Greystone. So Greystone is a safe pick. He's like the first true offlaner, like tank that you get. He's unlocked immediately. He's a pretty simple hero to play, and when played right, he can be pretty effective, especially depending on how you're able to build him based off the circumstances in game. He's a really good beginner hero. He's really easy to learn. Like if you're just jumping into the game, he can be a very solid off-lane pick for a new player. So, and I'll kind of cover why that is, and we'll go over his kit and stuff. But generally speaking, really good beginner hero. His kit doesn't have too much confusion to it. It's pretty straightforward. So we'll jump into that in just a second. First thing I'd like to do is cover the base stats here just real quick. Nothing too crazy. I'll bring over the actual scalings from the website here in just a second. But you can see all of his bases here. Nothing too crazy. He does have pretty high starting physical damage. Again, scaling is going to change that to some degree, but he does scale pretty well with his basic attacks. So if you're able to put any points into you know, physical power and stuff while you're stacking his tankiness, it can be pretty effective. So let me bring over the scalings from the website real quick. Here we have Greystone's base stat scaling. And you'll see base health, he gets 85 per level, health regen 0.12 per level, base mana 40 per level, and so on and so forth. His attack damage, it doesn't get too crazy with the scaling. It does scale pretty well. And he does actually start off with a little bit more energy armor than he does physical. But as you can see, the scaling, each level he's gaining more physical armor per level. So that's just something to keep in mind. The starting numbers don't necessarily dictate what they are good at. You really have to look at this stuff. So he is a tanky hero, 85 health per level, almost 3 physical armor per level, and a half an ability armor point per level. That generally puts you in the tanky realm. So with that being covered, jump back over here. And let's go ahead and get into his abilities. So his Q, his fiery swords, that's going to be his the spin. You'll see the ring around him with the spinning swords. It looks like a little spinning like flame kind of thing. That deals 100, 140, 180, 220, and 260 damage, physical damage, over 5 seconds in an area around yourself. And so that also does scale with his physical power at 220, so that's pretty big. That's going to be like your main damage dealing ability, and it's also kind of like a somewhat of a protection veil in a sense too, because enemies are going to think twice about jumping right into you when you have that going. So that can kind of help protect you a little bit, or at least deter enemies from you. Cooldown is 10 seconds. Mana cost is 60, 65, 70, 75, 80 at max level, and your radius is 450 units, so pretty decent range for that. This is probably his like bread and butter ability. You'll see this like if you're facing a Greystone or if you have a Greystone on your team, you'll more often than not see this ability going, at least in the main parts of fights. It's just too good not to have. Any type of AoE damage like that is just too good not to have going. So moving to his next ability, that's going to be his E. That's his Champion's Courage. So deal 60, 90, 120, 150, and 180 damage and disarm enemy heroes for 0.75, 1, 1.25, 1.5, and 1.75 seconds in a cone in front of yourself. And so that cone is a pretty good size. This ability is also really good. It doesn't deal as much damage and it doesn't scale as well with damage, but that disarm enemy heroes, that's actually really can come in handy quite a bit, especially if you're facing somebody like a Chimera or a Boris that really relies on their lifesteal per hit and stuff like that. You can kind of slow them down a little bit. It's not a crowd control ability in the full effect, but it can help you out in a pinch if you need it. Especially like the best time I've seen it used is against a Chimera and like offlane or something. And again, you're not going to be able to completely slow them down, but it does stop the regeneration if you hit it within like the higher levels. That if you hit it, then it'll slow them down a little bit. But cooldown is 20, 18, 16, 14, and 12 seconds at max level. That is pretty high, especially early on. So I mean, you're gonna kind of have to use it wisely. Mana cost 60, 70, 80, 90, and 100 at max level, so it's fairly high as well. It's kind of more of a strategic ability. It's not just, you don't just want to throw it out there just to do damage. You want to make sure if you're facing a certain team, you'll want to keep that on hand if you need it. The range on it is 600 units, so decent ways out in front of you, and then at a 50-degree angle out in front of you as well, so that's pretty good. And again, your disarm duration right there, so pretty good ability. Not one you want to spam, it's one you want to keep on hand. So moving on to his ultimate, that's his Heroic Rebirth. So upon death, returns to the heavens, applying a 50% slow at all levels to nearby units for 3 seconds. After a 2.5 second delay, crash back down, gaining 50, 60, and 70% base health at max level, 20, 25, 30% base mana at max level, and dealing 180, 260, and 340 energy damage to nearby units. So this is his coming back to life, his second life ability that you'll see. This is what makes Greystone so like iconic for the game, is that he's the only hero that has this. So basically he'll die, but he'll come back after a 2.5 second delay. He'll come back, with these numbers on your base health and base mana, and it deals some damage. So when you have this up, you can be a lot more aggressive, and teams will typically know that too. They'll be able to tell if you're pushing pretty aggressively, like, okay, he's being aggressive. He's probably got his ultimate, so we need to keep that in mind. It does have 160 physical power scaling, which is a little bit confusing on the damage, but basically it's just going to increase the amount of damage dealt off of your physical power scaling while still dealing energy damage. So nothing too crazy there. You're not going to really see a big impact on the damage of this anyways. It's more or less, the big part of it is just being able to come back to life. Your health percentage and mana percentage regained right there. Your cooldown, so cooldown at level 1, 240 seconds, level 2, 180 seconds, and then at max level 3, 120 seconds. And your radius for all of this slow and damage dealing and all that is 900 units, so that's a pretty big range. And it does have, you'll see in the little clip I'm playing or played a minute ago, it does have kind of a visual indicator on it where he'll glow He'll kind of go down to one knee and put his sword in the ground. He'll glow, so that's the visual indicator. You'll be able to see it either as an ally or an enemy. You'll be able to see that happening as it's going down. So moving on to the next ability, that's just his basic attack. Nothing too crazy there. And then his right mouse button, assault the gates. So leap to a target location, dealing 60, 80, 100, 120, 140 damage, physical damage, and deal 30% bonus damage to units and a smaller inner radius. So it kind of has this like almost like a bullseye type ring of damage. So your radius is 250 units, and then half of that 125 unit radius of that inner circle will deal 30% bonus damage. So basically it's like if you land right on top of a unit, it'll deal bonus damage. Now, physical power scaling, it only scales at 40, so nothing too crazy. You're not gonna typically be able to use this for a ton of damage. It can help secure a kill in the sense that it does deal damage and bonus damage on top of it, but it also closes the gap. It's a leap. It's got a 1200 range, 1200 unit range on it, so it can help get you back into the fight or get you out of the fight too. So mana cost is 60, cooldown is 16, 15, 14, 13, and 12 at max level, so not too bad. That's right about on target for a movement ability typically. And if you build some cooldown reduction, obviously all of these will lower quite a bit, so that's also something to keep in mind. Moving on to the passive, so Hero's Resolve. Permanently gain 4.71 physical armor, and it says 0% max health regen. Damaging enemy heroes and jungle camps increases these effects by 50% for 5 seconds, stacking up to 6 times. So basically what that means is you're going to permanently gain 4.71 physical armor at every level. And then you have a stacking effect here of either damaging an enemy hero or jungle camp will increase them by 50% for 5 seconds, stacking 6 times. So you can stack them as you either damage an enemy hero or jungle camps. So it's kind of like a sustain factor where the more you're hitting things, you're kind of stacking some tankiness, some bulkiness, so that you're not just getting hit real hard. And then that maximum health regeneration, maximum health regeneration is 10%. That's 10% of your current health regen, not 10%, not like 10 health regen per second. So it's really pretty minuscule in a sense. I mean, it seems minuscule, but any amount of health regen added on is good thing, you know. So, but like say your health regen was at whatever level you're at, say you're at 3.5, you're gonna get 10% of that 3.5 added on to your health regen. So if that makes sense. So with that being covered, that pretty much encapsulates his kit. His main source of damage is going to be his fiery swords, and then obviously playing aggressively or pushing objectives when you have your ultimate ready to go is going to also determine your play style a little bit. Using that jump smart to either close the gap or get out of a fight if you need to, and then using that disarm strategically against certain enemy heroes. It also works well against carries and damage dealing, like physical damage, auto attack damage heroes, because it stops them from being able to put out damage for a short time. So that's also something to keep in mind. Alright, so let's go ahead and jump into the aspects for Greystone. So Greystone's pretty open to the aspects in a sense. So generally you're going to build him pretty tanky, a lot of health, a lot of physical armor, and he's going to stack physical armor and so on, and health regen, all that stuff. So he definitely excels in tanking, but he can also be built kind of more damage based too, a little bit, not too much. I mean, you can go full damage Greystone and it works pretty well. There's certain things you obviously want to prioritize when you do that. But a good like starter build, a good safe build is always going more tanky with a little bit of damage sprinkled in there. Greystone really likes the bonus from Titan. It just adds to basically what he already does well. Health regeneration, and then you'll receive a 2% of your bonus health as adaptive power, which means physical power in the case of Greystone. Adaptive power just means whichever power stat you have built more of, it's going to give you that amount, or it's going to give you 2% towards that specific stat. So if you had more physical power built, it's going to go to your physical power. If you had more energy power built, it's going to go to your energy power. So he really likes the bonuses from Titan. You can definitely go Rook as well for just the ultimate tankiness and never dying. Like the building tank and going these two aspects pretty much ensures it's going to take the whole team to kill you, unless you're just really under leveled or whatever. If you're going jungle Greystone, you can throw the Beast Hunter Titan in there as well. I wouldn't typically use Beast Hunter too much unless I was jungle. It just seems to work out better that way, but it is still a good aspect for him in that role. Greystone can also go into the purple aspect as well with a rogue or something like that. Doesn't seem to be the best option, but it will help you stack with your favorite points. It'll help you stack physical power, so that is one thing that helps. And it'll give you a little bit more like sneaky damage with the passives and stuff for the on-hit ability or basic attack. You can go aggressor as well, just being that you're Greystone and you're going to be tanky and you're going to be alive a lot longer than most other heroes. You'll probably end up in enemy territory and you'll get that bonus physical power based on your level. So that is a possibility here. Seems to be more of like a jungle aspect. Like you're not going to get a ton, at least early game, you're not going to get a ton of use out of this in lane, but it is there. It is an option. Another one I like to run on Greystone is King. So you'll permanently gain 4 attack speed, and you'll stack 2 more attack speed for every 20 creep score and 2 attack speed for every hero kill. Max of 20 total attack speed. So that's going to get you some attack speed, which Greystone does like, especially if you're building into some lifesteal, which I'll cover building later on. But that's a pretty good passive there. And then your Desperation, you'll gain 1.5 to 2.5% based on your level of total basic attack damage as physical power for every 10% of your missing health. So basically, the lower health you are, the more damage you're going to get. And that is something Greystone also likes, because you're going to be in the fight, you're going to be tanking. Just because you're not going to die doesn't mean that you're not going to end up at low health, especially while you're getting hit. If you have your ultimate up, enemies are going to be trying to knock you down so they can pop your ult, so they can try and kill you. Well, the lower your health gets there, you're going to be dealing more damage and hopefully have enough time to either secure the kills after you come back to life, or long enough that your team can come in and clean up for you, you know. So that's a possibility there. You can go Ace or Hunter as well. I wouldn't throw them up there as the best aspects, but they do work. They are good, especially like minions last hits healing for 12. Greystone does like that healing to help sustain him as well. Kind of more comes into play earlier on while you're laning and killing minions constantly. That'll help him there. Shredding the armor, I mean, that's solid enough, but as a Greystone, as a frontliner, typically you're not going to be doing a whole lot of, like, you're not going to be fighting the tanks too much. It's more of just going to be an initiation to get you back in towards like the back line. But it is a good option to have. And then Hunter, granting physical or energy power for 6 seconds while you damage heroes, stacks up to 10 times, and then you get 100% move speed at max stacks. So that's pretty good. I mean, that's more towards your damage dealing Greystone, if that's the way you're going. And then trigger happy, hitting 3 consecutive basic attacks on the same enemy hero provides a burst of 20 attack speed for 4 seconds. So again, that's going to be more towards your damage dealing side of things. It works well for him if you go that route. I would say the safe bet is going to be probably your Titan Rook or maybe a Titan King or something like that. That'll help you build and stack and still stay pretty tanky. So yeah, that pretty much covers the aspects. So we'll go ahead and jump into our build here. We'll get into our items. Alright, so with Greystone starting off lane, he's pretty much going to start the way you would expect him to. You'll probably start with your Titan's armor and a small health pot. The reason I like Titan's armor on Greystone is for that extra health regen. Normally in like an offlane role, you can go the other route as far as like going into more of a damage, like the Titan's bow, or like with Kwang, you can go into your Titan's spellbook. But which it's not a bad option. It does give you some lifesteal, but I just love this the passive with the health regen on Greystone, just because you can stay in lane for so long with it. Even when you're low health, even before you get your ultimate and all that, you just gotta, you might get low health, you might be last hitting, enemy laner might be bullying you a little bit, but as you just take a step back and let your passive health regen and your health regen from Titan's armor kind of kick back in, you'll be back in the fight in no time. So that is pretty nice. If you were to go Titan's bow, you'd be able to do a little bit more damage, but you wouldn't necessarily have as much health regen to lean back on. You'd have to rely on that lifesteal a little bit more. So that's just something to kind of keep in mind if you do go that route. Outside of that, obviously depending on your matchup, really good first item for any tank is going to be Baleful Armor. Baleful Armor is just a really good item, especially with that passive, dealing bonus damage. It helps your wave clear. It'll help deal some damage around you to enemy heroes. Something you can do though, say you're facing like an energy damage off lane, like a Kwang or a Morgesh or something like that. You can always build the Sigil of Fervor first, just 1,000 gold, and then move into a different item that gives you energy armor if that's what you want to prioritize depending on the situation. I would say if you're going up against a physical damage offlaner, Baleful is the way to go. If you're going up against an energy damage, I would buy this first to still help with your wave clear and give you a little bit of health. And then I would probably go into something like a Ring of Rejuvenation or a Fountain of Invigoration. I tend to, on Greystone, I do like the Ring of Rejuvenation, but Fountain is also pretty good because it'll help increase your healing received through your passive. And if you built any lifesteal, it'll help that as well. So the sustain, you're getting health, energy armor, and the cooldown reduction as well. So both good items against energy damage laners, and you probably will build this at some point regardless, even if you are against a physical damage laner, you'll probably still end up building this at some point just to be kind of evenly balanced to get you some energy armor for the team fights later on. Another good item to build into is Blighted Chestplate. With you being a frontliner, you're going to be taking a lot of damage and stuff. Applying the trauma to your target on them basic attacking you is really good. And it just reduces incoming basic attack damage from enemy heroes by 5 times 6% of your physical armor. So that's just pretty good for any frontliner. Now it doesn't give any damage stats per se, but it does help stack your tankiness, and if you use the Titan aspect, it'll help build off of that. So something to keep in mind there. Another good one, Thorn Shield. Kind of the same concept. It's going to give you health, physical armor, and cooldown reduction. It'll reduce the critical strike damage from all critical strikes received by 20%. and it reflects basic attacks 18% of your total physical armor as energy damage to the attacker. So another good one for a frontliner. One I didn't mention, and I didn't bring up the boots either. Typically with the boots with Greystone, you're going to build, most of the time you're going to build one of the green boots depending on who you're facing. You can go into the red boots if you're going into a little bit more of a damage build, kind of a damage lifesteal build. You can go into the boots of the hunt to give you that attack speed. I would say just base your boots off of who you're playing against. If you're going against a physical laner, physical damage laner, I would go with the Stoic Greaves and Inertia Wraps for energy damage. Another good item for Greystone, and really any like physical tank, physical damage dealing tank, is Demon Sword. And the reason I say that is because it still does give you, it does give you physical power, it gives you cooldown reduction, and it does give you health. So it's still stacking some health for you. And the passive of shredding that percentage of armor stacking is also good as a frontliner, for the simple fact that in those situations where you're frontlining and you're having to fight the enemy frontliners to get to the backline, hitting those frontliners for the enemy team will shred some of their armor for your backline to be able to deal increased damage. It's a pretty easy concept, pretty basic concept, trying to help the team out while you're helping yourself out, basically. Shredding that armor on those tanks will be helpful for your backline to be able to deal some damage, and it does give you that physical power boost. So pretty good item overall here. Another solid option is Fist of the Titan. Gives you physical power, health, and attack speed, and it applies that on hit damage to your basic attacks. So pretty good item for Greystone. Outside of that, I really like U-Mantle for Greystone as well. It may not be as helpful to a Greystone, just because when he gets low, you have that buffer of your ultimate anyway. But if you use the King aspect and you use U-Mantle as well, you're going to get more of a time frame to be able to deal that bonus damage from the King aspect. So, because it'll give you that overshield and protect you a little bit at low health. So that is kind of a little combo there that you can run with that passive. Plus it gives health and physical power, so that's stuff that, you know, Greystone wants to have. Those are two stats that Greystone wants. Increases your tankiness and protection while still giving you a little bit of damage to deal as well. Now, some other cards you can throw in there that aren't necessarily, a little more situational, but they're still really good items. Like obviously Knight's Battleplate is still a really good item for Greystone, giving both physical and energy armor. That's pretty big. And the shield, and it's a good item for just about any frontliner that wants to be tanky. This is a really good item. Cataphract is also a pretty good one with the cooldown reduction and the physical armor and the aura as well. Pretty good. If you want to be a little bit more of a supportive frontliner, you could run that with a Demon Sword and like a Knight's Battleplate or something like that, just to be able to shred that armor, reduce the enemy's attack speed in an aura. Would be a pretty good combination there. Outside of that, you've got items like your cleavers, either one of these. Pretty good items. Greystone doesn't have a ton of issues with wave clear, which is kind of where these items do excel a little bit, is with helping with wave clear. But it does give you stats that you generally want to either one of them. You get power, attack speed, lifesteal with this one. You get power, health, and attack speed with this one. So just, you know, I wouldn't necessarily put this on my must-buy items in game, but it is there. I'll think about buying it, depending on the situation. And then other than that, you can always build some lifesteal in a red item as well. Bloodlust Saber gives you some lifesteal, although the dash on it, you don't really need the dash as a Greystone. I would probably go either Devourer's Blade Blade gives you really good stats for Greystone outside of not giving you any health or anything like that, but it does give you that lifesteal, that physical power, and the critical chance. And then excess health from lifesteal becomes a shield up to 20 per hero level, so that'll give you a little bit of a buffer as well. That's a really good item for him if you're going to go into more of a damage lifesteal route. You could even just build this one item here, this one like damage item with the lifesteal, and then build tank the rest of the way, and you would still be putting out a decent amount of damage and also have that lifesteal on hand for you. So that about covers the main stuff here. Like you can always go into a Sword of Souls as well if you're just trying to stack some damage. I probably wouldn't run this off lane. I'd probably run this jungle if I did. Just so, you know, because you're stacking jungle minions constantly. And as a jungler, you want to have a little bit more damage for your ganks, especially being that Greystone doesn't have any crowd control abilities per se. So the initial burst of damage you're going to do when you get into that fight, you're going to want to be able to put out a good amount, just in case your team can't get there to help you. So, but other than that, that pretty much covers Greystone's build. So if you guys have any questions or feedback, and you know, leave it down in the comments. Let me know. Hit me up on the Discord server. I hope you enjoyed this video. Hope you guys are enjoying all these Teacher Tuesday videos. If you have just general feedback, comments, something you'd like to see, if you got a hero request, again, throw it down in the comments or let me know, and I'll try and get it covered for you. So with that being said, thank you guys. I appreciate it.